future of entrepreneurship in Kenya. Wow, such a good and interesting topic right there. The statistics are going to be coming to you right away. But before that, how are you doing this morning?
I'm blessed, Eric.
I know you journey from a very long distance across the other side of town.
Yes.
And being here this wonderful morning is a blessing to us.
County number 47.
47 to...
It's 22.
Past Nairobi to
Yes.
Kiambu.
Yes.
Tunashukuru sana
Thank
for
you.
coming.
Thank
Thank you. How are you guys at Entrepreneurship?
No, we really thank God. This far, at least, we can tell Kenyans are getting to appreciate the art of active listening.
Wow.
Yes.
That's a topic by itself.
Yes. It's an interesting topic. So, to our viewers and listeners, how we request that they will actively listen.
Wow.
And, I don't know whether you know, by creation and science, your left ear is what picks what is useful in terms of information. But your right ear will quickly pick entertainment, music, fun, anything that is not really constructive. And I know you can attest. Every time you pick your phone, you pick it through your left ear. So we need their left and right.
Yeah.
Because they will be listening, they will be entertained.
Wow. Amazing.
Yes.
That's a good one.
Yes.
Give us a brief on this one. Entrepreneurship in Kenya.
Yes.
Starting off, what is entrepreneurship and is it for everyone?
Correct. Thank you very much, Eric. We are blessed and we are glad to be here. So, to define entrepreneurship, the conversion of any economic resource into high productivity and yield. That is what defines entrepreneurship. So if I can give you an example, because you appreciate entrepreneurship started at about 20,000 years ago. Surprisingly, in Africa, a country like Guinea is highly known when it comes to matters entrepreneurship within Africa. But of course, in the outside map of Africa, we have America through George Washington. These are the known, the country in Africa is Guinea, in America is George Washington, who is known to be the father of entrepreneurship. So agriculture is known to be the bedrock of entrepreneurship. And when you look at it now from a definition, when we talk of promoting an economic resource into high productivity and yield, figure out by the time you are having chapati on the table, the process that that particular product has had to undergo, you know, from the seedling, which entails a lot of discovery, to planting, to taking care of that plantation, to harvesting, from harvesting to either storage and processing into flour. From processing into flour, now it hits the market through either the retail or wholesale chain. And at that point is when Eric now will go and buy that unga. Again at home, undertake the process of preparing it to become a chapati. So if you are to figure out chapati in the absence of that process, really that conversation will be a bit more stretched in terms of you trying to figure out how do I have one, you know. So so from agriculture we have that flour, and that flour is now converted into a meal at home and equally a meal at the restaurant. So you can see now the process. That is an economic resource because it entails a creation of value from a perspective of trade and equally from a perspective now of coming in to really feed us. So that is how we will define entrepreneurship. So anything which does not resonate to meaningful value at a product or service, then unfortunately that's an event. That's an event. As you will appreciate, we only go and attend for events necessarily for entertainment. And not really so much value that we draw out of it. But when you sit now and consume, or rather exchange, that finished good or product or a service, then that's an economic resource which has now been highly promoted into high yield for productivity.
Wow.
Yes.
Is it for everyone?
Unfortunately, Eric, I know last time I was just engaging some of my followers in my LinkedIn page. And I raised up a conversation that as a country, we need now to really figure out and focus on how to produce more value creators as opposed to consumers. So what I mean, if you look at what is the trend in today, is that we have about 87% being released, either high school, TVETs, university, colleges, etc., in the form of employees. So we are basically coming in to consume that setup which was founded by an entrepreneur through a very large pool or a population which is too big to only rely on one or two people in terms of them engaging themselves into active, productive activities. So if we don't take really an about turn on the same, unfortunately the direction is not good. So is it for everyone? What I know is that as it stands now, entrepreneurship has not featured out to be for everyone. Because you remember sometimes back I told you in this forum, the difficult or the highest, toughest responsibility that is coming out from as a very strong weakness before mankind is thinking. You know, is thinking. We really don't, so we really don't. So we have refused to think. We have refused to think.
Somebody may ask how.
We'll get there. We'll get there. But when you figure out how creation took place from day 1 to day 6, you will really appreciate how much God has to think through on how really the creation and the universe will look like. So until we get to that point where we purposefully and deliberately resonate and agree that we are determined to think, then we will see a conversion in that entrepreneurship will be for everybody. So when you look at that entrepreneur, the support system through one of their critical resources, one of them is the employees. But then you will pick a lot of diversions between that purpose and direction with the vision bearer against what the support system carries with them. So more often, we have really had to confuse what entrepreneurship is. So there is myth within our entrepreneurship, just to respond to what you've said. So we tend to come out and argue that entrepreneurship is the easiest. You know, the reality is you really have to work hard and remain very resilient and determined to sail through the motions of tough times and almost seeing like you are at a hit dead end, looking at the initiative or that idea that you want to roll out. So it's not really an easy journey, because entrepreneurship is not an event. It's not a one-off. You really have to pack up your mind and push through. The second thing that people also get to confuse it is that it's all about capital. In real sense, you will realize there is a lot of ideation. There is a lot of resourcing looking at people. And of course, there is a lot of collaboration for you now to materialize that particular idea into a real perspective of or real application to produce a product or service. So the essence of saying it's easy, you don't really require any capital, And they're also coming out and alleging that entrepreneurship is actually inborn. As much as we believe there is lack in genetics within now the society chain looking at the family, but honestly, Eric, if indeed you are lucky to be from that lineage of that genetic, in terms of that family being known to have driven a lot of entrepreneurship activities in the country or in the world, but then if you just sit and don't work on it, it is neither here nor there. So it can never be reported here as black or white, if you look at it. So it's not about luck, it's not about capital, it's not a factor of it being the easiest to pursue. There is really a lot of input that is required looking at it from a perspective of mindset, because the only destroyer to mankind is your mindset. You know, how you think through an idea and fail to act or see a lot of limitations out of that particular idea, then really it becomes really your immediate destroyer. The aspect of you not being responsible, taking accountability of your own actions and decisions, again comes in really to inhibit or really cushion you against growth, purpose. If you're not passionate about it, Eric, what keeps you in this seat every day, January to December? You are passionate and purposeful about it. You cannot do it in either way, because are you doing it really for money? No. Statistically, all these successful entrepreneurs which you've picked, it's only 8% who have come out to strongly note that we only came out into entrepreneurship for money. Majority, or 92%, came out to confirm we did it for passion, out of and we deliberately became purposeful. We were equally trying to find our own space in terms of independency and freedom from that conditioned way of thinking into formal employment. So if you're not passionate, if it's not, if you don't become purposeful, then you are likely not really to discover yourself within the perspective of entrepreneurship. So it's not for everybody. Not at all. Not at all.
But you see, because of the high rate of unemployment, especially in our country, it's being used as an alternative.
Yes. Today, the biggest conversation which is happening between the youth and the government is when the youth go back to the government manifesto, when it was now campaigning before the people, they really came out strongly to convince the youth to vote for them, promising to really work so much on capitalization, incentives when it comes to taxation, accessibility to credit. Okay? And they signed an MOU. There is an MOU, Eric, between the government of Kenya and the youth. But really, what is it that is happening? 1 year down the line, what we have seen is more taxation through now those who are in formal employment to now come in and at least fulfill that MOU. So when we get the government coming out to say we are building affordable housing, they are really trying to address what they had promised the youth. But again, if you look at that manifesto, which had said there will be incentives which considers the youth from a perspective of taxation, the taxation is actually increasing and growing every day. So as you have rightly noted it, yes, there is an unemployment, Eric. That is true. About 3.7 million of Kenyans today, youth, they are not in employment. Okay? But what is it that is happening? Out of desperation and frustrations of life, this again, that particular huge chunk of number has come out to only opt into entrepreneurship, not as an end which justifies the means, not from a perspective of creating value, you know, but as an alternative to come in and be seen to be productive. But in real sense, when you look at it from a perspective of now the structured way of doing it, initially, Eric, it starts like an idea. You know, when you read a novel, you will always come up with an idea.
Yeah.
That particular sounds like a novel-like thinking or an idea which has been picked, you know. But when you look at it now, there is need to structure it. You structure it in the form of a business strategy. And this is what now comes out to really map. What is it that you intend to bring out in the form of a solution to a problem? You know, any entrepreneurship or any venture that does not come out to solve a problem, that's not entrepreneurship. Even creating more problems. Because if you cannot solve a certain solution, a certain problem, by way of providing for a solution, that direction is really not called for. So an idea has come out, Eric, novel-like. You get self-aware and really discover that you need to formalize that idea in the form of a strategy, which becomes now a plan to really serve you from a feasibility point of view of how viable that idea is, you know. Then from the idea itself now packaged through a strategy, which now becomes a plan, you come out and define your product and services. What is it that you're bringing out to the consumer? You know, what problems are you solving? What is it that you're coming out to deliver to the consumers that has not been in existence? Or if it has been in existence, what is your differentiator? Okay. Then, of course, number 4 is purely on marketing. Okay? You now start crafting out a marketing plan on how you intend to roll out your products or services. So that desperation move of looking at entrepreneurship as an event really is not structured in the manner that we have discussed. So you just wake up, your colleague has a kinyozi next to you, you figure out like he has too much traffic of people who comes there. You want to put another one. Then before you realize, you don't really, you have no idea that this is somebody who decided to sit and structure their own conversation. So we are not really organized as to how we approach entrepreneurship with that end in mind, that we are trying to solve a specific problem or a challenge. So to the youth, if you seated and waiting now for the government to come in and make real its own manifesto, one thing you need to appreciate from a collaboration matrix point of view, looking at entrepreneurship, where you bring in first 3C, the company, the client or the customer, and the collaborators. The government equally is one of the collaborators among the other many, the employees, suppliers, business partners, etc., etc. So it's still faced with the same challenge. So maybe the government is also asking itself, how can this youth help us? How can youth help us? You know, so yes, unemployment justify the need for creativity and innovation, but it can only become now realistic when we structure that particular process or conversation into a more meaningful conversation.
Wow.
Yes.
Then what are the mandatory approaches to entrepreneurship success?
So if you look at Kenya within the global map, this is a country which is really being eyed by the entire world. And you can see the activities which are happening in this country day in, day out. So as much as we will sit here and figure out that the state of unemployment is quite high, then what we need to ask ourselves, we now as a people, what is it that is required of us from a perspective that you've come from? So if you look at it from capitalization, training and mentorship, the structuring of that business in terms of governance, in terms of processes, in terms of policies, in terms of strategy, then that conversation really what it calls for now, Eric, is that we now as one of the collaborators within the entrepreneurship narrative, we must really come out and identify that particular space that we intend to bring about value addition. So more often, what has turned out to be very broad and open opportunities have actually been left untapped. So as much as we had said 20 years 20,000 years, we still had entrepreneurship. Kenya has only come to evolve from a perspective of entrepreneurship from the last 2 decades. And you remember the evolution that came with Moi Kibaki's government. That is when people started now seeing leadership as very meaningful and constructive, because there were a lot of opportunities. You know, we saw a lot of involvement in IT and within the ICT space. You could see now the boda started coming in. We saw where now the informal sectors came in to contribute about 83% of
even private universities.
Okay. So when you go back to Kibaki's era against today, what you pick, Eric, is a lot of desperation. There is no resilience, and people has just turned out to be hopeless. But what is it that we are doing? We are not really turning out to be genuine when you look at entrepreneurship. The mother of entrepreneurship, Eric, is agriculture. That's a mother of entrepreneurship. But as much as we've really seen a population growth, which has come in to eat into the land that we have, a lot of government inputs are going through now to address spaces like healthcare, the education system, insecurity, etc., etc. We also need to come out and undertake a meaningful approach into entrepreneurship. And what is it that we are expected to do? As you spot check or you come across through an idea, really it's only fair and just to also sit and carry out a feasibility study as to how viable that particular idea is. When you figure out how that idea turns out to be, you need to appreciate that there is an ecosystem in the form of critical resources that at any given time you will interact with. One of them is the financial resources. There is a notion which circulates, and I find it interesting, but not very kind. The notion of zero-based budget. Okay? As much as we can be zero-based budget, but the reality is you require an input of at least some financial resources to start. You know, you will also require the element of people, because it's either people who are mechanizing that particular idea, and if you look at it from the other side, it is consumers of customers who are actually consuming that particular idea. Then we also need to appreciate that we do not self-govern ourselves. As much as we put processes, systems, structures, etc., etc., we are liable to the government in the perspective of taxation, you know, complying with the laid out county or national government rules and regulation. And when it comes now to the case of suppliers, how do we come in and structure that conversation from a support system of either supply or product or services to meaningful give you value? Okay? Because it's true, Eric, the reason why we have suppliers within the critical resources value chain is that they also come in and really ease that burden where you have to come in, and if you are, for example, required to have a capital outlay of about 100 million, the reality is you can put in 10% and the suppliers will enable you with the 90. But what is happening? They'll give you the 90, you don't pay them. You instead start taking them round. So we really do not need to turn out and imagine we operate in isolation. And entrepreneurship does not mean you put up that cap of the bossy mentality and figure out like now you've become like everything within a society or a nation. All these stakeholders we have mapped here, if indeed they do not become a priority, and they also come in to enable you to function and produce that good or service, then that conversation becomes very dull and very sad. And what is the outcome? You don't pay taxation, you know what that means. You don't pay your suppliers, you know what that means. You employ incompetent people, you know what that means. You bring in business partners, the auditors, the board of advisor of governance, they mislead and lie to you, you know what that means. You don't really involve your consumers, you know, because more often, Eric, when we are producing, most of these organizations are now sales-centered. So if you look at the difference between sales and marketing, when it comes to sales, you typically want to drive that product or service to a consumer. But for that consumer to come and uptake that product or service, you do marketing. And marketing is more or less what is defined as design thinking. Design thinking is when you produce a product or service, you reason for value to the customer. Okay? So you will always have the customer beforehand. And that's why when we were mapping the value proposition, we picked 3: customer, company, collaborators. So you really can't proceed. So for us, our responsibility is that those 3 C's are mandatory to observe if we really have to see end of day. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
And now how can we use entrepreneurship to stabilize our economy?
Thank you, Eric. You know, when you look at this economy, is actually as it stands now, we almost headed actually to about 90% of the informal sector driving the economy. Because what you need to appreciate is that the external factors such as inflation, we've seen a lot of risks, geopolitical risks, the wars you see in the world. Some people will sit and figure out that that war is only between that country and the other. We are feeling it as a country as it stands, because unfortunately Kenya is one of the biggest consumers as opposed to producers. We are a consuming country, and when you pick a lot of traction from the global map on Kenya, is that they know we don't take chances when you see a good packed car, trouser, nini. So long as you have the money, you straightforward go for it. Okay. So it is entrepreneurship which actually defined and put the world before the global map, because initially people are doing what we call now the barter trade. You remember the communities and tribes exchanging goods and products. You know, you have a cow, I'll give you a chicken. You know, then we evolve into currency, money, notes, and apparently you can see now we're into digital currency. So when you look at it from a perspective of stabilizing the economy through entrepreneurship, we really need to go back to the basics. If you go back and look at what George Washington did, and to date, he's still really a role model in the global map. This guy really invested quite a lot in agriculture. That was farming. He drew a lot of innovation within agriculture through machineries. When you hear the likes of John Deere, those tractors, etc., these are the people who came in to mechanize for a solution that could easily move the farming process and make it a bit more easier, you know, in terms of value creation. When you look at it now from a perspective of World War I and II, again, when it came now to ammunitions, you know, and weapons, he also came out very strongly in terms of now setting up a pace as to how the world can come in and defend itself in case of attack and colonization era, etc. So the responsibility of entrepreneurship, historically, where we have drawn value, and if you figure out what you consume most in your house, it's purely agriculture, be it food, milk, eggs, etc. That's how the country survives. So we must come back and appreciate and shift our mindset from that white collar to blue collar. You know, the only reason why we take our own kids to school is to be facilitated to think by way of gaining knowledge through that classroom experience. So that ability to think should bring them out as independent people from a perspective now of building the nation. But what is it that is happening? While we have 3.7 million unemployed today, we still have over 10 million acres of land that is unattended to. And you know the global map of this country. You know, when we were already very productive during the Kibaki era, allow me to use that. You remember the Galana Kulalu?
Yeah.
If you look at the product that came out from that land, from that very moment, we came into appreciating agriculture, on how it can impact on us. You could see how really useful that conversation became. But then, this conversation, as much as it's agriculture, we also need to customize our own initiatives per strengths, or how suitable that particular initiative of value creation can come out strongly from a county perspective. If you go to Kisumu, for example, look at fishing. So if you are to do fish farming in Kisumu, you will not actually even figure out how much value you will create within that particular county. Yet when you go now to Nyeri, there is a lot of value that we can draw from coffee farming. If you go to Kajiado, you can do a lot of beef from Kajiado. So we need to decentralize and go back to the basics. We need to appreciate that the space that we have in the form of the formal sector or the white collar job is not adequate for all of us. And it's very limited, as you're rightly putting it, to come in and address and satisfy that gap which is already in existence. Apparently it's raining, Eric. Okay? As much as it's raining, I can assure you, 3/4 of the land will be unutilized. So how much value are we really sinking?
So what would you say then to the people that say Kenya had missed rain for the last 7 seasons?
The reality is each one of us was praying for rains. Okay? If you didn't, then there is a conversation around it. And I'm happy you've observed the rains. Because it's actually again coming back to speak to this conversation we're having on stabilizing the economy. Why is it that, Eric, when it rains, everybody, if not all of us, will come out and celebrate that we have a reason to thank God? Why is it that, why does it all of a sudden become a conversation? Because when you look at the solution which can come out through land as one of the factors of production, the opportunities that sit on a land, Eric, are immense. If you look at this place that we are seated, you can make this place anything. You can bring this building down, sink a borehole, start delivering water. Today we are producing here. Tomorrow you can even convert it into a shop, an example. But it's seated on land. So what we really need now to really do, we need to have a truthful conversation amongst ourselves. You know, but the trend is when we sit and blame the government on everything, yet the government is also blaming us.
Let's go to some areas like in Western Kenya, where they used primarily to do sugarcane farming. Come to parts of Central Kenya in coffee. Then you look at the industries in the Western regions, the sugar millers are not doing good. Actually, they're in the bailout system right now. There's a whole conversation about coffee right now being steered by the Deputy President of Kenya and dismantling of the cartels. Then are these factors, how do we overcome those discouragements? Because they are also, farmers, they are willing to do their work, but the market is not there, it's not ready. And I'm saying that in a myth form. So there are those market forces that oppose the production.
Thank you, Eric, for this. Let me be very honest and candid at the same time. What has brought all those sectors to their knees is purely mismanagement. Okay? If you are to do a simple survey, out of every 10 households, 10 out of 10 will have sugar as in their list to do of shopping for that particular month. Okay? But then when you take a case of all these factories and milling that have gone under and sunk, when you fail to be selfless and you get to realize you're not in that position you are in to make rich money and get rich, but rather create an impact, you confuse and waste the entire system. Because the conversation now changes, Eric, from Prayer Cave Media to me as Eric. So as much as you have been given that opportunity to come in and impact on life by way of buying from these farmers, and if you look at how that ecosystem was working, actually it was seamless, the best ever. So these milling factories had partnered with some of these government entities like Kenya Seeds. So they will come in and get into a partnership with such corporations. So these farmers will be supplied with all farm inputs, fertilizer, seedlings, everything. In return, when you get now to supply that sugar cane with us, because we are into an agreement, what we do is that we'll net off all that consumables you've taken from us and pay off the Kenya Seeds. Okay? So that single factory becomes very critical as a chain between now the Kenya Seed, who is providing all these farm inputs, and this farmer who is committing all their harvest to this particular factory. But what is it that we do? We come in and divert that conversation from paying the farmer and Kenya Seeds in the name of expansion.
Oh my.
Okay? So we start figuring out Japan has the best machineries in the world that can come in and automate and run this production very fast at the expense of who?
The farmer.
The farmer, okay? Number two, the government has a responsibility, Eric, when it comes to financing, when it comes to the environment, when it comes to watchdog, whether it is formal or informal, the government has a primary responsibility to ensure that what has been set up is actually up and running as per what is expected. So does the government have that, does it have that capability? Yes, it does, Eric. But what is happening? That capability which has been placed in there through parastatus and through this ministry is not functioning. When we were born, you could see extension officers visiting homes, taking samples of the soil, going and doing tests, coming back and advising our parents that this is the best that you need to do. Is it there? No. What is the government doing? These enterprises sinks, but since the government recognizes that we slept on the job, they will come in and recapitalize these particular enterprises, but without carrying out a root cause to establish why exactly did we fail. So when you look at those sectors, and I'm happy also again coming back to agriculture, you pick agriculture from a perspective of sugarcane or coffee that is processed, and that processing is what we refer to a workflow that will give you an output which is of more value economically. Okay? Now, so this particular farmer is not paid. They have really invested, and some even go to an extent of borrowing, because the government again is not coming out to put up mechanisms on how you can actually access capital. Sometimes, Eric, we need to be very rational and very objective. I'm impressed by the initiatives by the government. I don't know whether you've ever tried to access it's youth fund. What do we call it? Hustler fund. I tried doing it, and the maximum I could see was 1,500.
Myself, I didn't try.
So you didn't try?
No.
So when you look at it now, Eric, assuming now I was to really get into and venture into farming, you know?
One MP, was it an MP, broke it down and said you can buy one chicken, I don't know, it lays one egg.
But you need to put up structures for that one chicken. Okay? So, the capital is not easily accessible. The operating environment becomes again another conversation. Because if you look at all these farm inputs, taxation.
Yeah.
End to end.
Animal feeds high.
High.
Then
So,
disease, that's now the other big problem.
Heating. So, you go borrowing from the bank, you are hit with that interest rate. You go buy those feeds, fertilizers, seedlings, etc., etc. You again hit at that particular level. You go and supply your produce, okay? You are never paid, okay? You go down mainstream to that labor which supports you in the course of managing those plantation, etc., etc. The out of inflation and how the dollar has sunk the Kenyan shilling, so the cost of labor has actually tripled.
Yeah.
Okay, so when you look at the entire value chain, the farmer or that person who is undertaking to create a value for a product or service really has no space to figure out how best can I do it.
Yeah.
Yes, they will come in and tell us, let us automate. We have so many platforms, mobile apps, e-commerce, etc., etc., where we can sell for, by way of our phone call. But look at it from a culture of we as a society. We only get to trade when we get to interact, Eric. It's easier for me to close a deal with you while we're having a one-on-one, as opposed to us getting to social media platforms and me trying to showcase you what exactly I can offer. That's not us as a society.
Yeah.
We are not really yet there.
It has been proven. It has actually been proven. No matter how technological savvy we are becoming,
Yes.
transactions still remain largely on relationships. Yeah.
So when you talk of transaction, entrepreneurship started by way of trade. You have that microphone. I have my cow. You need the cow, yes. I need that microphone. You know, we really needed to engage and transact. So the only way we can bring hope back to these industries that has proven to come and contribute to our GDP and the economy at large, honestly, the government here becomes the number one.
Wow.
It's the number one.
And we are going to be talking about what is the responsibilities of the various stakeholders.
Yes.
But just to summarize, are you saying for the
3.7
million youth,
yes,
mostly of them that are in urban centers, for example in Nairobi, with the degrees, it's high time you think of that idle land that is in your rural home.
There is no option.
And what you can do about it.
Yes.
And that is the future of entrepreneurship.
That's it. You know, Eric, you really put it very well, because imagine what is the current trend as it stands now. The reality is white collar jobs,
Yeah.
they are no longer there.
Yeah.
Okay? Yet you and you see, when you look at the laws of the land, the moment, Eric, you hit 18 years, it's you against the government.
Yeah.
And you have a responsibility to be self-independent.
Yeah.
By way of becoming productive and creative.
I think on the numbers, out of 1 million graduates, around 200,000
yes,
are the ones that are able to get
230.
230.
And they don't come in what they studied. It's a matter of placements.
So we have a deficit of 770
outside here.
Outside.
54% basically. And the cycle keeps revolving. And don't forget that the population is ballooning. Kenya is known to be very productive.
Wow. Let's finish it here. What are the responsibilities of all the stakeholders in the entrepreneurship failure or success?
You know, when you fail to plan, that does not mean that you're escaping from failure. Okay? You saw an article the other day where Kenyans are spending about 16 hours on non-productive tasks. Okay?
Wow.
So Eric, where did creativity and innovation go?
I think it's our education system to get away.
What do you think is the role of society in this problem? What do you think is the role of our education system in this problem? What is the role of government in this problem? What is the role, what is it that is the responsibility of all these stakeholders when you look at it from a wider perspective? Truth be told, when people get to succeed in life through entrepreneurship, they forget everything, all those sad experience, the hard work they put through, the resilience. They stop being creative and innovative. They no longer take up risks, you know. They are no longer responsible, but they venture themselves into a mental state of oblivion. Okay? Where you come in and you are sort of like Eric in utopia. Everything is just good. It's good. Everything is just good. And that is the state we are in as a country. Our education system is very good. Mentally. That's very good. Society-wise, we as a country are all governed and led perfect. So everything is now left to the government. We as a parents, we have left everything to the government. Okay? When you come back now to the government, they believe that they have massive opportunities where everybody comes in and fits. Sad story, we have about 2 million KCPE candidates. Okay? So you will assume if about 1.5 million sails through to high school, then about 1.2 million sail through to TVETs, colleges, university, etc., etc. That number is at 1.2 in a period of about 9 years from now. Wow. Okay? So where will they come in and fit? If we don't come back, number one, and address our curriculum, as you have rightly put it, there's a problem, Eric. Because when you come out and chant me to be an entrepreneur, and from where you're seated, you can only define entrepreneurship to me through a theoretical perspective.
Somebody said a graduate in business administration, but they can't even run a shop.
Yes, a shop. Okay? When you ask me to really not do 1 + 1 is not equals to 2, but it could also mean 0, based on how you are looking at it at an equation level. What exactly are we saying? So the responsibility of reversing these trends sits, number one, with the government. Okay. The government has a duty to provide affordable capital, because it's the financial policies which price that credit in terms of lending baseline. The government has a responsibility to provide for an environment that really supports business. And what I mean, if you look at it from the bylaws that are coming in every day, the national policies that are coming in every day, they're only coming in from a perspective of increasing and widening the tax bracket. Okay? So every day that particular shopkeeper is in operation, it's a matter of when the financial year closes on the county government or national government, and they are hit with new land rates, new business permits, trading license, fire, exactly, blah, 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 you know. So look at that particular environment. When you look at it from a perspective of now security, we have to secure the nation in terms of terrorism. We also need to safeguard the nation against the incidences we have been picking. How many shops are being broken into as we speak? Because the youth, again, going back to the government, went through an education system that did not empower them to come out and create value, but rather come in as a consumer by way of seeking for employment. To the society, we must we must have a conversation with our own kids. We must bring them to the basics. Okay? The 1958 colonial era and a policy that was adopted by the government, twende shule, tusome tupate kazi mzuri, and songs have been done, you know, you really need to have a conversation with our own kids. That is not only in white collar space that you can come in and add value and do well, you know. When you look at it again from the graduates and the people who are 18 and above, let us not live in a world of utopia. You know, honestly, Eric, let us just have a monologue conversation, get sober, address ourselves from a mindset shift, and take up opportunities which are just next to us. But we don't just necessarily do it. We also need to touch ourselves with mentors, with the trainers, and we also need to appreciate, as much as we no longer have credit, we have so many government international companies which are offering grants, where you come in, you apply for those grants, and they are largely within the women's space, the youth and marginalized, etc., etc. So as much as we really are not doing very well in terms of accessing that kickstarting from in the form of capital, the taxation policy, our education system, we also need to really, when you start off, and those who are in operation, if you cannot structure that business in form of a strategy, okay, the governing body, if you do not have an organization structure, a team that mirrors you and can come in and move that business to the next level in future, if you do not know why you exist, there are people who say we exist as a philanthropist, but every day they are chanting their managers as to why the numbers are not doing very well. You know, there are those who exist for profit, but they still believe they exist for money. There's a different conversation between money and profits. You know, if we do not come in and put up systems, processes, and procedures that comes in and serves as the routine of continuously monitoring and evaluating that business, and holistically make that enterprise investor ready from a perspective of attractiveness, looking at ourselves inward, we are also coming in to let this economy down. All these businesses will continue failing. We'll still talk about unemployment. We'll still chant the government down that it brought us a manifesto that is a scam, you know. And at the end of the day, we'll only increase the social gaps.
So this thing calls for a mindset shift.
If you cannot do it right, Eric, be ready for wrong.
Shift the mindset.
Shift.
And just even to highlight the education sector in that, where our schools did not teach us how to think, but what to think. So primarily they are focused on cramming and doing well and passing. That's why kuibia mtihani na what is very common, because a lot of it does not equip the learners on how to think. How to think.
Do you know how much the government has spent to fly KCP papers all over this country?
How much?
When I listened to the CS for education, I got even much sad. I wish we had spent that money to put up incubation centers where people are put there to think
and do something innovative. Wow. If you're listening in and you are currently in the space of thinking you don't have a job, thinking about entrepreneurship, think about that idle land in your home. Sukuma wiki seedlings are not very expensive. Nadawa maybe ni 5,000 hapo. Lima sukuma wiki, put some value on them. Maybe you can dry them, sell them as dried. God will give you an idea.
Exactly.
Let's shift our mindsets into something that has value addition. Go back to Shags. Think about something along. I loved it the way you put it. Everything we consume in our houses is around agriculture.
That's the thing.
It is the mother of entrepreneurship.
Yes.
Thank you so much for coming.
Karibu Eric.
Tumalizie na kutuambia about Optipro.
Yes.
I call you the business doctors. So give us your phone number as we finish the show.
Thank you, Eric. My phone number is 0725 090 430.
Again?
0725 090 430.
Wow.
Yes.
If your business is ailing, if unasikia kama utafunga, if your business is sick, call the doctors. They will help you with the strategy.
Yes.
They will help you in employee. What do you call it?
No, human capital optimization.
Optimization.
Operation efficiency. Finance. We'll support you in all this. Unatibu wote. End to end.
Biashara isi. Don't let your business go down and they skewer.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Mr. Simon. Asante.
Karibu sana. Na waambie culture. It's strategy for breakfast.
Wow.
So we are suffering because of the culture.
Amazing.
Yes.
We thank God for the beautiful morning and for the session that we have had in the Chow Down Break Show from 7 to 9. Thank you so much for being together with us. Tunashukuru Mungu on your behalf. And we thank God for everything that we've been able to do and for His grace and for His mercies upon our lives this morning. I want to thank the people producing the Uchao Don't Break Show. We have Peter Mora, Sheila Huro, and Doreen Mwende. Mungu abariki sana, together with the entire Prayer Cave TV staff. Your labors in the Lord are not in vain. And to you, our viewer, you're special to us. We love you. We appreciate you. We pray for you every day. That's why we have a special service for you, 8 to 9 p.m. Every weekday here on Prayer Cave TV is dedicated towards praying for you. Whatever kind of thing that you're going through in life, you can talk to us on the number on the screen and we are going to help you with prayer. Unaweza kuwa you've been inspired by today's session and you now want to pack your bags, go back to your rural home and start an agricultural business.
Yes.
Send in your prayer request. We stand with you in the gap. Otherwise, hakuna haja ya kukaa Nairobi kama hakuna kitu unafanya. Yeah. Do something. Shift your mindset.
Yes.
One thing does not always work. There are 1,000 more ways.
True.
Yes.
True.
That can work. So God bless you. I've been your host Eric Kimondo and my guest Mr. Simon Kamau from Optipro Limited. See you on Monday for another blessed episode of the Uchao Don't Break Show. See you.